It'll say, and you have to press continue.
It, it seems to be recording. So,
Yes?
yep.
Okay, thank you. So, as some of you will remember, and some of you might not know, several years ago, I decided to sell everything I owned and buy a round the world ticket and go traveling to listen to stories, to collect stories, to tell stories, and to learn from the storytellers themselves. And one of the places I really wanted to go to was Bali, because ever since I was 15, I read in a Mills and Boon romance novel, if anyone remembers those, um, about how in Bali, everyone never locked their doors and they always met as a community. And it just sounded so wonderful. I wanted to go there, and it is like that. So, since my first trip, I've been there several times, but this actually happened on my first trip. I went to Ubud, which is the cultural center, and there was like a homestay, and it was run by a great mother called Ibu. And Ibu loved the fact that I was a storyteller, and I loved the fact that every morning outside my room there was a glass of black tea and a fresh pineapple pancake. That was our breakfast. And then I was talking to her, and when she found out I came from Sri Lanka, I said, "Oh, yeah, and we really love eating rice." And she said, "Well, we love growing rice and eating it." And I said, "Oh, well, I've started collecting stories about how rice came to be, the origin of rice." And she said, "You will come to dinner tonight." So I thought, okay, and got all ready as you do. And she took me out of the village into the paddy fields. And I'm thinking, where is this place we're going to eat? And then she took me along a division in a paddy field. And now they were just paddy fields. And in Bali, they're stepped like that. And they're so beautiful. And I was like, where are we? And no torches, just starlight and a little sickle moon in the sky. And I saw like the shadow of a structure. It was a platform with a rattan sort of woven roof on stilts. And she took me through the paddy to that. And we climbed this rickety ladder, and seated on the platform were two men, and they kind of beckoned me in and sat down, and I sat down, and by then, the smell of all these wonderful things that Bali is, as well as the wind rustling through the paddy, it sounded really musical. And I said to her, you know this is amazing. And then one of the men handed me um, a little parcel. It was a banana leaf which had been folded over and entwined with a, do you know the middle of a banana leaf, the spine? They curl it and they use it like a pin. And when I opened this parcel, it was rice, fragrant with the smell of the flowers they'd used. And there were two beautiful spring greens from the paddy field. And I took it and I ate it, and that had to be the freshest rice I had in a long time. And then one of them started to speak, and this is the story I was told. I'll just have some water. In the past times, before the now times, there were the sky beings and the earth beings. The sky beings were tall, willowy, astonishingly beautiful, brave, wise, and above all, eternal. But the earth beings, they were temporary. They lived fast, they did everything fast, they grew up fast. And both these worlds carried on as most do. But you see, the sky beings, the king and queen, they had a daughter, and she was quite a princess. She knew what she wanted out of life, and she knew what she had to do, and she did it well. But after about 500 years of living, she needed to find new things to do. And so her favorite thing was to get onto a cloud, and she would sail across the world. She would see flowers blossoming and fading. She would see animals giving birth and animals dying. She would see rivers tumbling and crashing and serenely going into the sea. She saw creatures jumping over ponds, and above all, she was interested in the humans, how fast their life was, how different. But what she loved most about the humans was music. And she loved sailing all over because the music differed no matter where she was, but they always told a story. And one day, as she was sailing across a valley, she heard a sound she'd never heard before, so haunting, so pure. It seemed to be coming from behind a tree. So she stepped off her cloud and she walked around, and as she did, she picked up the flowers and she held them, inhaling the perfume. When she went around the tree, there was a young man, and he was playing a thin, long instrument. He was playing the song of his heart, the song of his life, the song of his dreams. And all she knew was she wanted to listen. He became aware that somebody was watching him, and he looked around and he saw how beautiful she was and how she was listening, and he didn't quite know what to do. "Keep playing," she said, and so he carried on. She walked in front of him, sat down cross-legged, surrounded by all those picked flowers, and when he finally stopped, they began to talk, and their talk deepened and became more intense and more loving, and by the time she said, "I have to go now," it was as if fate had brought them together. Each had found the other. He said, "Will you come back?" And she nodded. And she disappeared around the tree, and he didn't quite see that she'd stepped on a cloud and gone, but she was nowhere to be found in the valley or the village. The next day, though, she arrived, and the same. He played, she smiled, listened, they talked. This happened day after day. Up in the palace, the sky beings, the king looked at his wife and said, "Where is our daughter? She seems to be disappearing every day." And the queen, she'd seen the dreamy look in her daughter's eyes, and she suspected what might be going on, and she said, "I don't know where she goes, but she's obviously interested in something." Well, the king decided he wanted answers, and so he sent one of the other sky beings to follow his daughter the next day. And this sky being followed. He saw the princess get off the cloud. He saw her talking to the human boy, and he raced back up and he told the Sky King. The Sky King was incensed, and he just shouted, and that reverberated on the clouds and down to the earth. And his daughter looked up, and she stepped on the cloud and went back up. "I know where you have been," said the king. "Yes, father, I realize that." "Is that all you've got to say?" "Father, I have fallen in love. That is the man I wish to marry." "Nonsense," said the king. "We are eternal. We live and live and live. But he is but a blink in our eyes. Nonsense. I forbid you to go down to the earth. I forbid you to meet this young man." And the princess, what could she do? She was followed everywhere. But after 2 days of towing the line, on the third day, she gave the slip and she got on the cloud and she went back down. But the Sky King, he was waiting for this. And the moment he saw his daughter stepping off that cloud, going round and talking to the young flute player, he jumped down and the ground reverberated. "Daughter, you have betrayed us. You have betrayed me. This is not allowed." And the princess tried to talk. The flute player tried to talk. The king, he would not listen. "Because you have disobeyed me, this is your punishment." And he clicked his fingers. And the flute player looked. The princess disappeared. And in her place was a tall, slender plant with 2 beautiful green leaves, emerald like the colour of the princess's eyes. And it waved in the breeze the way the princess moved gracefully. And the flute player, he could not believe it. He looked at the king. "Now see where your love leads you." And the king went back up to the sky. The flute player, he sat by that plant and he began to play. And he played all that day. And at night he slept next to the plant. The next morning he played again. And the next night he slept. And this carried on day after day, night after night, week after week, month after month. Up in the sky, the king saw this, and he regretted his hasty actions. He regretted losing his daughter. He regretted his rage. But once his actions had been done, he knew he could not undo them. And so he stepped back down onto the earth, and he walked up to the flute player. "I am sorry. What can I do to make this better?" And the flute player, he looked at the king. "All I want is my beautiful princess. Give her back to me." "I cannot do that." Then said the flute player, "There is nothing else I want in this world." And so the king did the only thing he could. He clicked his fingers, and there on the ground was a second plant with 2 strong leaves. And together the plants moved and whispered. And they say those plants were rice plants. And from then, all the rice in the world comes. And in Bali, they say, if you sit on a platform within the fields and you listen as the wind moves over the paddy, the rice, you can hear the sound of music and the whisperings of love.
Beautiful, Debbie.